Well, hey, fabulous authors, welcome to RTTV. I am so glad that you could join us today. We've got an amazing lesson brought to you by one of my dear friends, JP Sloan. He is here to talk to us today about his pre-writing strategy for developing strong characters and strong scenes. And I looked at what he's going to be showing us, and it is going to be so valuable to you. It's going to be so worth it. So we're going to jump right into our intro because I want to bring him right on. I know we've got a lot to talk about. So give me just a second for our intro, and we'll bring him on.
Welcome to RTTV, brought to you by Reading Transforms, with your host, K.M. Robinson of K.M. Robinson Photography and Reading Transforms. If you look to the right of your screen, you will note a chat box. We encourage you to ask questions and comment throughout the show. Our moderators will be watching the feed and collecting questions for our hosts to answer during the end of the broadcast. Use the red question mark tab to differentiate your questions from your comments in the feed. If you are a member of our Facebook community and our weekly newsletter, your notes will be emailed to you shortly. Make sure that you are active this week in our Facebook community for deeper insights into how to apply this into your marketing strategy and for ongoing support. Welcome to the weekly live broadcast that will revolutionize your author branding, book marketing, and social media marketing strategies.
All right, well, I know we've got a lot of really great information to go over today. We're going to be talking about JP's writing strategy and planning it before he gets started. And I don't want to waste any time with long introductions, so I'm just going to welcome him right now. JP, welcome to RTTV. I'm so glad that you're here today.
Well, thank you for having me. This is a subject I'm actually moderately passionate about, which means I shouldn't bore you too much.
I don't think you could ever bore us. If any of you have ever hung out with JP, you will know that he is one of the funniest guys ever. So pretty sure we're going to have a great time today.
Well, I think John Cleese just felt a disturbance in the force.
There we go. All right, so tell me a little bit about what we're going to be talking about today.
All right, so pre-writing. This is the entire process that you go through as an author before you start writing words. And it's a section of writing of the entire creative process that I think is overlooked way too much, especially for left brain types like myself, because I can't get anything done without a plan. So I've developed a few personal spreadsheets based off of input I got from a few people. Most notable of which would be author Meredith Bond. She's an author of Regency Romance and a member of my critique group, and fantastic human being. And she has some books on Amazon on the creative process. Check it out. A quick shout out for her. But I've taken her input and I've created my own Excel spreadsheets, most notably for character creation and for scene creation. And that's what we're going to walk through today, because I find pre-writing, strong pre-writing, creates more vivid characters, more distinctive voicing, and it really does a lot to avoid writer's block. So you hit a stumbling block, you know exactly where you're going. You can just hit placeholder and move on to the next bullet point. You don't waste time or momentum.
That's a really good point. And that's great for combating writer's block, because I know a lot of the authors that I work with frequently are asking questions about how to overcome that and how to work around that. And this is a great solution to kind of work through that. So I know that you have created these amazing Excel sheets. We're going to take a look at those today. And I got to see them in advance. I love them. This is something I talk about with my people when they are planning what they're writing, and we go through this list of things with the characters that they should be listing. But yours is so much more in-depth than what I was ever telling people to do, and I love it, because this is what I talk about when we talk about figuring out your target audience and your fans. So I cannot wait to see what we're going to be doing with this in relation to working with characters. So talk to me. What are we doing?
Well, a lot of people like to make a distinction between plot-driven and character-driven stories. I personally think that's a lot of hokum, because every story is both at the same time. It helps some people to focus perhaps on one or the other, because we all have different brains. And I'm going to tell you this. A lot of people waste a lot of time trying to argue whether or not it's best to be a plotter or a pantser. Is it best to get everything spread out? Even though this is my method, this is best for me because my brain architecture is rigged this way. A lot of people, this would just mire them down. So take this for what it's worth. This is something that might be of interest to you. And if you're watching, an entire broadcast on pre-writing, it probably is. So first of all, let's start off with character creation. I start with character creation because I think it is the foundation of everything that comes. If you don't know who's in the thing, how they're related to each other, and what their motivations are, you're never going to get a solid, believable chart of course for your plot. You're going to end up with plot holes, dead ends, people acting out of character, and you're going to be stuck in endless revisions. So my first sheet I want to show you, if we can take a look at that character sheet, is an Excel spreadsheet that I have broken down into 4 main quadrants. The first quadrant is your basic physical descriptions. We're talking about age, eye color, hair color, the things you need to know to visualize your character. Then we move on to something that is perhaps more specific to the value of your character in your plot, which is the character's purpose. And this is especially important if you write series, because your character has a role to play, a wound that the character generally is attempting to overcome. And I drew this from Orson Scott Card. He wrote a book on how to write science fiction and fantasy that I read back in college when I was taking English classes. And he said something very profound that I agreed with, that every character should have a wound which will not heal. And every book, I do my best to display and showcase every character's wound and their failed attempts to heal that wound. So there's something there that I really think is valuable to define. We get character motivations, why they do what they do, and their internal conflicts in your story, which is, what this does is weeds out characters that are placeholders or are trope characters. In fiction, especially genre fiction, is replete with characters which are cookie cutter stand-ins from what you've seen in a sitcom or in Hollywood. Moving on to the next section, which is the bottom left section, speech and mannerisms. I've written a book called Yea Though I Walk, was released this summer, and I've got some good review feedback on Amazon that all of the characters have very distinctive voicing. And that's really difficult to quantify. As you read it, you need to know who's saying what, not necessarily, with a lot of dialogue or action tags. And apparently I lucked out, my work paid off. I think a lot of it came down to their good habits, their bad habits, their vocal pauses, defining them and making sure they don't overlap. If one character says, the other one says, well, the other one says, so, the more you build that in, it subtly defines your characters.
I love that. I think that is such a good idea to really get in there and get those mannerisms and get those words and have them somewhere where you can check back in with it to make sure that it stays consistent, because so often things just kind of mesh together and you forget things and that continuity is lost along the way, and this prevents that from happening. So I think digging in like that is so good. And like I said, I kind of tell my authors to do this stuff, but I never got that specific, and I love this. This is fantastic.
Great, yeah, because getting all the characters lost into a sea of talking heads is the downfall of enjoyable fiction. The reader needs to move the page, and they don't need to stop and say, wait, who's talking now? So the more distinctive your characters are, the better it is for the reader. And this is not about you. This is about the reader. You're doing the best thing you can for your reader. Moving on, personalities, my next section. And I've got a lot of interesting stuff on here that I actually don't fill out. Zodiac signs, for example. I put that on there because I thought it's a neat idea. I've gotten away with that, but you know what? Some people who do role-playing characters, or they like to play the online Japanese role-playing Nintendo games, the zodiac signs create interesting archetypes of human personalities. Regardless of your beliefs on whether astrology is for real or not, you have to admit, they boil down the human nature down to 12 interesting archetypes. And I find that's useful. It's a pre-made template for you to just draw from. So why not? But I think the biggest thing is defining the character's fears and hopes, because that will determine how characters respond believably. You can try your best to have a character kind of organically in your head. I can't do that. So I got to know this person is afraid of abandonment. So the second my primary character, my protagonist, decides that, okay, you need to stay here and watch the store while I go kill zombies, that person's going to freak out, and the protagonist won't know why. And there'll be a moment, maybe a small moment, but that's the moment where people say, I get that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's a really good point.
So, and then the last page is your histories. And here's where's your family, who's alive, who's dead, where are they from, where have they moved from. And here you get little nuggets that pop up in conversation. Someone, for example, in my Dark Choir series, one of the ancillary characters, Reed Malosi, made a deal to say that he used to play football for Penn State. And now, all the way into book 4, which I just completed, my main character still calls him Penn State. And that just makes them real world characters.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. I love that. And this is just me throwing out a little bonus here. You can take this information, like this very specific information about your character, and even if you don't use it within the context of your story, you can pull that out later for marketing, and you can give out these little hints, like this person likes this, or they do this, or they went here to school. Even if it's not in the story, it's great for pulling out later and giving that bonus information to fans.
Which means I now fully expect all of my books to be in the Penn State bookshelves come next week.
That's right. That's right. We're going to clip that up, and we're going to send that to them, and we're going to take care of that.
We are.
Fantastic. All right. So have we hit everything about our characters that we need to talk about?
Yeah, I just touched on those briefly. FYI, you can get these files on my website. If you go to jp-sloan.com, go to my blog, my most recent blog post called A Refresher on Pre-Writing. I link to all of my blog posts where I originally outlined these in greater detail than we're covering today. And at the last post, you can download this from Google Docs. I don't care. Share, enjoy, spread the word, make better stuff.
Yes. And guys, this will be in our show notes. So if you're watching our rebroadcast, this will be linked up for you. And if you are hanging out on our newsletter, and I hope you are, because every single week we send out bonuses and a deeper look into the lesson that we are talking about. So you can jump onto shownotes.readingtransforms.com and sign up for that. We will be giving out all the information you need for this. And then you have all the links that you need so that you can get your hands on a copy of these Excel sheets as well, so that you can use this in your own writing strategy.
Great. Now, moving on. The next thing you got to do once you got your character panoply figured out is your plot outline. I do. I say you do, but if you're buying into my system, this is what you would do next. The plot outlines can be one page on Microsoft Word with a boom, 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 which is what I do. One of my links in my blog shows my usual template, and it is from Story Structure Architect. It's a book I have in the bookshelf behind me here that has the basic architecture of known story types. There's lots of info out there. Go to Barnes & Noble, give them money. But the one I choose for my books is the thriller archetype. And what it basically boils down to is you start with a bang, and then you settle back down with the status quo, introduce the problem, have 3 failures, a dark moment, an epiphany, and the climax. It's the basics. It's the very basics of plot structure. But there's lots of ways you can twist it and curlicue it. Also, there's all kinds of ways to do plots. There's the W outline where you can do the falling, rising, I've done that before as well. And it bears noting that despite all of this work that I do, the last 2 books I've written and published, I've actually pantsed the last Act 3 of and went back and filled in spreadsheets. So this is not necessarily all Terminator. Sometimes it's organic.
That's good to know. Just because you start with something like this doesn't mean you have to see it through the whole way. You can tweak it as you go and work with what you need to do to make it the best that you can possibly make it. So even if you don't start out with this, you can kind of work it into where you are and then go back and fill things out. And you can really use it to examine how you're writing and how you're working.
That and the fact that prose, fiction, storytelling, it has been largely unchanged in the last 6,000 years of written history, which is weird because everything else in the world has changed. Why has fiction been the same since Homer sat down and wrote the Iliad? And the fundamental answer to that is that the human brain operates in a organic mechanical nature. There's a reason why there are no new stories, technically, because our brains want to consume something that operates through the synapses and the architecture of our mind. Artists have to work with the human brain as the receptacle, so sometimes you can find formulas and outlines, but you got to make them your own.
That is the key there. Everything that you can learn, you got to make it your own. Otherwise, it's just not going to work.
Absolutely. So let's move on to my scene worksheets. And I'm going to tell you, this is the workhorse. I spend time on the characters, and it's good time spent. I spend time on the plot, great time spent. But if my pre-writing phase lasts a month, this is 3 weeks worth, the scene worksheets. And I think this will be perhaps the most interesting. I take my plot outline and I start labeling out all of the scenes that I think will happen according to the plot outline. And then I make this scene worksheet for each of them. I call it scene title. Dorian Lake goes to the mall. Dorian Lake buys underwear. Dorian Lake casts the demon out of the underwear. I have to identify lots of things in each of these scenes, including how long the scene is chronologically. What's at stake? What are the prizes? What's my character's goal here? And I have to admit, I'm drawing from my theater background. There's a lot of this that goes into every scene on the stage. Every character has a goal to accomplish and an antagonist in that goal. Identify that for your imaginary actors on your imaginary stage. And for each goal, there's a strategy. And I have 1, 2, 3 written on here because I find that every scene can be condensed into a minor novel. It's like every chapter has its own beginning, end, and there's like 1, 2, 3 little hiccups on the way to it evolving. If it doesn't, if it has 2, cool. If it has 1, if you don't have any challenges or obstacles to overcome in a scene, you have to ask yourself, does it really belong? And that ties right into another cell. I'm skipping a bit, but there is the purpose of the scene. And again, I have 1, 2, 3. A scene can have multiple purposes. If you can't find a reason that your scene doesn't contribute to your plot, even if it's as simple as furthering the development of the character, you gotta cut that. I mean, that's just flab. Now it's just dialogue. It's just you being flippant, perhaps. Who knows? But as long as you know it has a purpose, then it's earned its right to be in your manuscript.
Absolutely. And I feel like that's such a good point, too, because oftentimes you hear stories about authors having to go in and cut scenes, figure out if scenes are working or not. And this is a way to eliminate that process later on. If you are going through as you do it and you decide whether or not it has that value to stay in there, that's going to save you so much time and effort later. So great thinking.
Yeah, and another thing I have on the scene worksheets is time and place. I mean, a calendar time, a clock face, and this has saved my bacon because I have started in on a manuscript and I've had a character say, I'm going to show up on Tuesday to do something. 6 chapters later, it's a Friday. And then they said, I'm going to do this on Monday. And you get lost in the calendar. And once again, if you have an editor of quality, they're going to catch your continuity issues. But the less heavy lifting you require of your editor, the more likely they're going to catch all the small stuff. So this helps me avoid the big stuff, which is more than half the reason I have these here. And I also have a scene checklist, which is at the very bottom. I have to say, yes, I have included this. And all of these have to exist in every scene. Conflict and tension. If it's not there, it's not a scene. There's a sense of the place. Concrete details. Where are we? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? There has to be some, sensational input of the place that you're here. The 5 senses. I try my best to include all 5 senses. Is there some emotion involved in the scene? And I say slash humor because that's my style. I use flippant character, locative styles because I find that that really engages and gets the pages turning. Do we begin in the middle of the scene? Because you don't want to spend any word count driving up, getting out, walking your car, walking in, sitting down, waiting for the other person to arrive. Cut that out. Start every scene in the middle, as close as you can to the action. And did I end on a hook or with some kind of bang? You got to bring people to the next chapter. The next scene, you have to have some kind of transition. If I ever end on a thud, that's someone can say, okay, I can put the Kindle down and go to bed.
Yeah, that's a very good point. You have to make them want to read more. So all of those authors who end on those hooks or end with those bangs that make us stay up until 4 a.m. reading books, you're doing it right. We aren't happy that you keep us up all night, but you're definitely doing it right.
That's a big part of pacing. Pacing has everything to do with making sure that you go fast when you need to, take a breath every now and then, but most of all, get someone to start the next scene. That forward momentum, it's huge, not just to keep your reader reading, it keeps you writing.
Ooh, that's a good point. I'm going to clip that up and use that as a little sound clip on social media because that was perfection, JP.
Well, it's important. Momentum is everything in writing. Anyone who's been writing for a while knows this. You can't take a day off, or you can't take too many days off. And if you yourself can't wait to get to the next chapter, you're gonna sit your butt down and you're gonna start making words.
That's a very good point. Motivational speaking by JP.
Hey, come buy my book. Oh, wait.
Yes. Guys, we're going to put all of that out for you because you should.
I wouldn't mind.
I know you wouldn't. That is the goal here, right?
Well, and I want to take a moment to reiterate, this is just my angle because I'm a very analytical kind of guy. There are a lot of people out there which are more intuitive, and they create fantastic stories because they have that story structure or architecture built in, but they can't quantify it, and they don't necessarily, it won't behoove them to look at it on a screen. It might confuse them, it might make it more onerous to make it think of, oh, this shouldn't fit into cells. Go you, you do you. That's very important. Find your way. I'm just saying that this is the way that I do it, and for all of you guys out there who think that this might give you some kind of help to avoid the mire, the morass, deep revisions, and major continuity issues, and to keep you writing, I find it works for me.
And that's what we love. We love giving different ways of doing things on RTTV because not everything works for everyone. And this works for you, and this works really well. And I mean, I see so much value in this. You put so much effort and so much work into this, and I see how that works within what you're doing. So this is great to be sharing with people, whether you use all of it or you use bits and pieces of it in how you are writing your stories. It's going to be helpful just to be experiential with it and trying it out and seeing if it works for you.
Now, I've skipped a lot of details here because we don't have an hour and a half to go through every cell. If you did, I'm sure everyone would have clicked off and gone to watch Supernatural or something. But download these Excel spreadsheets. Take a look and see what goes in. You don't have to fill everything out. Fill out what you think is good for you to fill out. And if you are ready, then you're going to see what matters. And if you don't see what matters, maybe you're not ready.
That's a good point. That is a very good point. So, we have gone through your scene worksheets. What else do we need to talk about, JP?
Well, we've done scene worksheets, we've done plot outlines, we've done character. Well, when it comes down to it, this all builds up to the most dreaded, for most, phase of writing, which is revision. And all of this, I keep mentioning revision because that is, maybe 80% of your writing process. It can take you 3 months to hammer out your first draft, but if you're not spending a lot of time creating that, sandcastle after you've shoveled the sand, you're really not putting your best out there. What this is doing is this preparing you for the revision process and edits, because you yourself should be the first person to edit your own work. And you will have all this here, this data, ready to look at if you say, wait, did I say that? Yes, I did say that. Or at the very least, you will have a sense of where your story was going to begin with. Whenever you submit it to an editor, if you have a publishing house, then they'll have their in-house people kick it back to you. Or if you're paying for your own editors, it's even more important for you to make sure that you're sending your best to that editor, because you're going to get way more bang for your buck. These editors don't just want to edit your work. They want you to be a better writer. I know, I could say 5 editors I know personally on, in my ins and outs, and all of them say, it kills me whenever I give people advice on this kind of level of planning. And every new manuscript they send me, they haven't implemented the suggestions because they clearly just want someone to fix it. They don't want to become better authors, which is sad because they are invested in you as much as you have invested in them.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And on RTTV, we work with a number of professional editors, and they really give some amazing advice. And when people don't take that, it's so sad because they could be doing so much more. So listen to your editors, guys. They're fantastic.
It's also important not to beat yourself up too much. Sometimes we have just limits. For example, I cannot get my head around past participles, whatever it is, every time I get back to it's like, no, it's not I did, I had done, and so I know that I'm going to forgive myself. But do your best. Always do your best to improve, and you will.
That's a very good point. Sometimes people just get to a point where they don't put the effort into it, and it really reflects within their writing. But if you work as hard as you can, and there are things you can't do, you have limits, but if you work as hard as you can on it, it's going to be as good as you can get it. And then those people can fine-tune it and help you get it just a little bit better.
Absolutely.
All right. So anything else we need to go over before we move on to our questions?
No, I think we've done a really good broad stroke on this.
Perfect. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you were hanging out with us, jump over into the chat box on the right side of the screen. You can go ahead and put your questions in now. Use that red question mark button so that I can see what it is that you are asking, or if it's just conversation, you can't find it, that's quite all right. Just go ahead and pop that in here. And I'm going to move that over there, and we're going to check and see what we've got for questions. So, here we go. Okay, so how much time should we expect to be filling in these sheets? Is this a very long process, or is this kind of quicker, or does it vary depending on the person?
Yes, yes, and yes is a short answer to that. Well, it really depends on how ambitious a script you attempted. I've done all of my sheets in one afternoon before for my second book, The Cursed Servant, because I had established characters and all I had to do was add in new characters. If you're starting a whole new endeavor, you're going to spend more time. When I started The Cursed Merchant, I used these sheets and I spent a good 3 days. 3 days, well, I'm going to call that 6 hours, because 3 2-hour afternoons working on it. These scene worksheets, they take me a good 2 weeks. That's me, because I'm anal. I got to get in there and get it all figured out. Yea, Though I Walk is the book that I did in the summertime, and that was super ambitious. It was really ambitious. I had a lot of existential flip-flopping I had to deal with in that one. And so I spent a ton of time. I had 2 months of pre-writing before I wrote my first word on that one.
Well, that's good to know, and that actually brings me to the next question, which is, do we work on these all at the same time, or do you kind of fill it out as you go, especially when it comes to those scene worksheets? Is that something you're doing as you're going, or something you're really planning out in advance?
I do my best to get a first draft of the scene worksheets, recognizing that something will occur to me as I'm writing. I can't be completely left-brained. Without failure, every story, I will stop and go and change my worksheets once something takes a left-hand turn. And again, I'm going to confess, Yea, Though I Walk and Book 4 that I just finished with my Dark Choir series, I only plotted to Act 3. And after that, I went completely off script. because on one hand, I've done this a lot now. This is maybe I've written maybe 13 novel length manuscripts using this method, and I kind of know in my head now it's written in. But also, I'm finding the value of the discovery. Let's call it that. The discovery of the ending. Granted, my revisions have been a lot more involved because whenever I go off script, so it's a give and take. But I feel on the whole, it's satisfying me. Maybe that means I'm turning into an intuitive type. Oh, that's terrifying.
Okay, we've just changed your whole life perception.
That's what can you do?
That is true. Okay, so that actually brings me to our next question. You'd mentioned that you had written the first 2/3 within your worksheets, and you just kind of ran with the last third. Once you did that, did you go back and fill that out later so that you had that information within your worksheets?
No, I didn't. I really didn't. And that's in a way of admission. I probably could have, but to be honest, by the time you're that far in, I don't know. It's either I already had it all in my head, and I could keep it balanced as it went back and forth between me and the publisher, or I was just living loose and dangerous with how it went down, but it all worked out fine. Really, though, I think pre-writing gives you an advantage. It's like a springboard to hit that pommel horse. The best momentum you can give yourself, the more information you can give yourself. Trust yourself. By the time you're writing and you're down to the climax and the dark moment, trust yourself and your ability to tell a story. And I think it'll work out. All you're doing is you're giving yourself an advantage.
Fantastic. Yes, I totally agree with that. And this is really great because it does give you that little edge, and it gives you that information so that you don't have to confuse yourself and you have somewhere to turn to if you hit a block. So that is fantastic. Now, I do have one more question for you, and this one is from me because I have to ask this. You said something about a theater background. Can we talk about that?
A theater okay. Oh, that's another life. No, I took lots of theater. I minored in theater at Louisiana State University, where I graduated. And I spent a hell of a lot of time in the drama department because my dorm was literally next door to the theater building. Yeah, I've got a lot of theater in my background, and I took classes on playwriting. Didn't work out for me, ironically. I did better in the acting. So, yeah, there you go.
That's fantastic. Now, I didn't know that, which means I am going to be demanding photos and videos, and if you don't fork them over, I'm talking to your wife.
Well, like I said, that was a long time ago. It was like 20 years ago. I'm not as young as I look. We didn't even have smartphones back then.
Oh, I bet there's something somewhere, and Courtney will help me find it.
We shall see. We shall see.
Oh, that's so awesome. I love that. I love that. When we go off air, we're going to talk about your favorite production and all sorts of fun things.
Awesome. We'll do it.
I feel like that's so exciting. All right, so we are going to wrap up. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today, JP. I hope you will come back and teach us more of these fantastic lessons because this was so good. Again, guys, this is all going to be available to you tomorrow in our show notes. So jump onto shownotes.readingtransforms.com. Don't worry if you are watching our rebroadcast because once you jump onto our show notes newsletter, you will get all of our back bonuses and the links and everything that you need for this. So you will have access to all of this. And again, you can jump onto JP's blog and you can check that out right there on his site. And we will link that in the show notes below. So make sure you check that out. JP, thank you so much for hanging out with us. This has been awesome.
Thanks for having me. It's always a blast doing this.
It's always so much fun hanging out with you. You're awesome. You and your wife, fantastic. Guys, if I haven't mentioned this, and I don't think I mentioned this in this episode, his beautiful wife is an author too, Courtney Sloan. Make sure you check her out because she's fabulous.
I agree. That's why I married her.
It is why you married her, yes. And bonus, I got to see her wedding picture earlier because she was on our earlier show, so I've been hanging out with these guys all day.
Well, you guys feel excluded. Oh, well, that's almost rude if you think about it. Oh, no.
Is it rude? No. No, this is our friendship. It's all good. They get to see our friendship from a distance. If you want to join us, you can.
Privileges, right?
Yes. Oh, so fun. All right. So, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Thanks for all of your great questions. I hope that this has been super helpful to you. I will see you guys next week. I'm actually going to be doing a very special episode of RTTV. I'm really excited about this. I am going to be talking with you about planning for next year. So we have been talking a lot about things that you can do with your marketing and your branding and your social media strategy. But we're coming to the end of the year, and I really want you guys to get ahead for 2017. So I want to make sure that you have your plan and your strategy all figured out for what you are going to be doing for treating your author brand like a business, and really make sure you have your goals set and you figure out how to get there. So this is going to be a big thing next week. I might have some special extra things we're going to be talking about. I've been working on this one for a while, so I hope you will join me next week. It's going to be totally awesome. If you have not jumped onto our show notes newsletter yet, I know I've mentioned this a couple times, make sure you're jumping onto shownotes.readingtransforms.com, where you can get all of our back bonuses and all the information from this week, plus a deeper look at what we were talking about. I also want you to join community.readingtransforms.com, which is our closed Facebook group where all of my authors hang out. We talk about social media strategy and beating those pesky algorithms. We talk about marketing your book, and we talk about building a better author brand that is engaging to your fans and gets them to interact with you on your social media. So I hope you will join us on community.readingtransforms.com. And then, of course, you can jump onto our website, readingtransforms.com, where you have access to our online communities, our online courses, the amazing projects that we're working on over at Reading Transforms, and all of the fantastic people that are connected to us, because we've got some amazing things going on, and I want you to be a part of it. Now, if you are an author or you are a book world professional who wants to be teaching on RTTV, I want to hear from you. Make sure that you are messaging me with what you want to teach, because in 2017, I want to get you guys front and center and teaching what you love to your fellow authors. And of course, I'm always looking for people to jump on to Young Adult Edition. So if you are a young adult or new adult author, make sure you get at me so that we can get you on the show to hang out with your fans live, play some games, answer questions, and throw some confetti. It is going to be a fantastic time. Now I'm going to leave you guys with just a few thoughts, and I will see you next week. Stay inspired.
Hey authors, I know that marketing your book can be so confusing, especially when you don't have a big budget to work with, but I want you to know that there are ways that you can market your book without costing you a cent. I have come up with a list of 20 totally cost-free marketing ideas that you can implement into your marketing strategy and see the same great results that my own authors have seen when they implemented it into their marketing plan. You can get your very own totally free copy of how to market your book creatively and effectively, even when you're flat broke, if you jump on to www.readingtransforms.com. Up near the top, you're going to see a spot where you can download it completely for free. It is my gift to you. I hope that you take this PDF and you use it in your marketing strategy and see incredible results, and I can't wait to see what you do with it. I'm KM Robinson of KM Robinson Photography and Reading Transforms. Stay inspired. Do you have a new book releasing soon? Do you want to create a unique experience for your fans on your book release day? Do you want to interact with your fans, celebrate your book, and be the talk of the industry? Book launch live events bring all this and more right into your grasp. Rita Award winner and New York Times bestselling author Pin Tip Dunn called it the highlight of my release day. Dying to find out if this is for you? Visit booklaunchlive.readingtransforms.com for more info and see if this is the perfect thing for your release day. Do you ever feel like you're alone in the book world? When the conferences die down and you're sitting in front of your computer alone writing your next manuscript, things can seem very isolated, but they don't have to be. Do you ever feel like social media changes are getting the better of you? Do you feel like you need support that you just don't have? You don't have to be on your own trying to solve the algorithms. Join the Reading Transforms community for a group of authors and book world professionals going through the same things as you. Connect and support one another. Hear from industry leaders on technology changes, and get the latest updates on RTTV, the weekly live broadcast that teaches you to market your books and brand yourself more efficiently and creatively. Get the community and support that you've been longing for, and surround yourself with authors just like you. We'll see you there.